welcome back to another episode of Mortgage Talk with Nitza and Jess. I am Danitza Nicklow with Berkshire Hathaway, the preferred realty in Pittsburgh, and this is Jess Lyons with Lyonsgate Funding. How are you today, Jess?
I'm great. How's everybody else? And how are you, Danitza?
Oh, we are good. It's been a while, summertime, we're busy, moving, all that kind of stuff. How about you guys?
Yeah, I've been all over Florida and all over the place in the last few weeks, so I understand. It's been a little bit busy and crazy.
Yes, hopefully everybody out there who's watching has had some enjoyable time, in the sun and warmth and all that great stuff. But, time to get back to work, right? Not that either of us have
Yes,
ever stopped.
true, true. We've just been working and doing everything else while we're at it.
Yes, and I always feel, I love my people that I engage with on social media, but as much as I love you, my clients have to come in the moment. So when you transition from social media follower to client, you will be my first in line then. So I want everyone to remember that too. And Jess, you've picked up your social media, so I hope everyone's following you, right? You've had some great information out there.
Yeah, I'm trying to get as much out there as possible and be a little more consistent with it. As Danitza said, I kind of live in the moment too, and I'm working on files since it's just me here. I have to do whatever it is to get the loans done and make sure everybody's closing on time. But I am trying to get more out there on social media and just, spread the knowledge of the mortgage world to people so that they understand and let people know I'm here to help. So.
Yep. So if you're not following Jess yet, she's at Lionsgate Funding on all the social channels. Great information. So make sure you do that. So the great information we're going to share with you today is about the process once you find that house that you want to make an offer on and it gets accepted. So earnest money, this is your hand money, lots of different names for it, and then the actual application process. So Jess, take us through these next steps.
Yep. So a lot of times, Danitza, the earnest money, a lot of people, whenever we send out our list as far as what we need for underwriting, earnest money is on the list. And it's important because it's a huge part of your offer to the sellers, right?
Yep.
And so earnest money in general, it's usually about 1%, right, Danitza? So if you're buying a house, it's 200,000, you're probably going to do like 2,000. However, if you want to make your offer more attractive to the sellers, you might say, hey, I'm willing to do 5 or maybe even 10,000, because then the sellers know, like, hey, this person's really serious. They've got the money to back it up. And so, super important in putting your offer in. But on the lending side of things, it's also very important because that earnest money that you give is going to get subtracted off of your total that you need at closing. So with that being said, for underwriting, we have to have a paper trail of everything. So when you give your check to Danitza, she will deposit it into her company's escrow account at Berkshire, and they will hold that money there until closing. And then at closing, it comes off of whatever you need for your total amount. So if you give $5,000 and say you owe 30,000, now you're going to need 25 at closing because that money gets applied towards your closing cost. So the really big thing is do not borrow that money from anybody, because me and Danitza have seen that and it creates problems. So you do not want to borrow that. If you need to get a gift, you need to make sure that you let us know up front and we can tell you the exact right process to make sure that your life isn't miserable and our life isn't miserable trying to get that money verified. So
Second
that's
thing
the
while
first.
I'm thinking too, talking about paper trails, it needs to be something with a paper trail. Cash is great, but we need something we can follow. If I photocopy a dollar bill, it could be any dollar bill, not yours, not necessarily yours. It could be mine or Jess's or whoever. So that's one thing to keep in mind also.
Yes, very true. I mean, when it comes to underwriting, all money needs to be verified, especially depending on the type of loan. Some loans are more specific and say, hey, you know what? It's a few $100s. We don't really need to verify it. But there's other loans like a USDA. And honestly, every deposit into your bank account needs to be verified, whether it's $25 or $2,500. So super important with the earnest money that if it isn't going to be coming out of your account and it hasn't been in your account for a long time, you need to make sure that you let me know or Danitza so that we can prepare you and tell you exactly what you need to do to use that money. So as we kind of talked about, there needs to be a paper trail. So we get a copy of the canceled check. And then the other thing that we do is we need to show that money coming out of your checking account. So when it comes out, we're going to need a consecutive history. So if you give us your bank statement, let's just say it ended on May 30th and your earnest money clears on the 12th of June, you can give us an account activity that goes from, say, the 15th of June all the way back to May 30th. But the one big thing with underwriting is when we're looking at bank statements, there cannot be any days missing. It all has to be consecutive days. So no matter what, people will go and they'll send me like an account activity and it'll be for 4 days, but then there leaves a gap of time that is not shown to the underwriter and they won't accept that. So just a lesson to everybody. Once you start showing bank statements, they're going to want to see all the way up until that money is in your account, like the total of what you need for closing, and your earnest money has cleared it. So don't be going and making deposits. Don't be spending crazy money on things either, because underwriting now, as I think we spoke about before, they're looking for like Klarna and Affirm, which don't show on your credit, but they do show in your bank account. And if they see these deposits that are coming out, they're going to start questioning and they're going to want to see proof that you don't have to pay that every month. So just keep that in mind. But is little transactions that you can do in your bank account, the better.
So other thought on the bank statements is if you have to, or when you have to provide, because not if, when, provide all the pages. So your paper statement or your PDF statement may say page 1 of 5, 2 of 5, and some of them are blank. Even send the blank ones because they're going to check everything and they want to see all the records that nothing got missed in the shuffle of pages.
Yes, that's very true. And unfortunately, a lot of times bank accounts will have like a calculation page at the end of the statement. And if you don't have that calculation page, the underwriter is going to come back and say, we need it, because anytime it says 1 of 5, all 5 must be there. So Danitza, very good point. We run into it a lot where people will say, oh, it's garbage. There's nothing important on it. We don't need to give it, but that's not the case. We do need the entire statement. And the other thing too that I find is if people go to the bank to get printouts, sometimes when they get a printout from the bank, it doesn't show their name on there. It doesn't say their account number. And so if you come in and you have like an account activity that just has a number, but there's no name or anything like that on there, they have no way of knowing that it's your account. So it's super important if you do go to the bank and you get like a printout like that because you don't have your bank statements, it has to have your name on it. Otherwise, they're not going to accept it. So we don't want people to have to go to the bank more often than they need to. So knowing these things up front should hopefully save some time and energy on your end.
Yeah, and everything's pretty much digital these days. So PDFs work, screenshots are not great, but we, between Jess and I, or whoever you are working with trusted wise, should be able to help you find the documents within your online system that can make it work. So, never hesitate to ask questions, even if they are outside the scope of what our job is. We're here to help.
Yep, no, definitely. I mean, unfortunately, sometimes I'm not technology savvy, and I have borrowers that are not either, but we can always help figure out a way to get online, because a lot of the times that is definitely easier, Danitza, than trying to go to a bank and ask for things. I don't understand why, but the banks don't usually understand what we're asking for, and they give us the wrong kind of paperwork. So the other thing too, I say when I'm working with people, when they go to the bank to get something, I always say, hey, listen, while you're there at the bank, take screenshots, like take a picture of it, text it to me. I'll review it and tell you like, yes, this is good, or no, this isn't going to work. Go back into the bank, put the teller on the phone with me. I'll tell them what we need. And that way it saves people from running back and forth, because it does happen a lot where the tellers don't really give them the right information and we need something else. So
Yep, and our goal here between the two of us is to make your life and your transaction as stress-free as possible. So, those moments where, oh, I got to run and feed the meter again or find a parking spot, give us a call. We'll help avoid that. So, talking about stress-free, now that we've got the earnest money and everything moving in this contract, what does the actual mortgage application look like so people can
yeah,
prepare for that?
yeah. So this is a common question that I get a lot, and especially with like people that haven't ever done it, they don't understand what we're going to be asking. So the main thing that we look at first, we start out with basically what's their full legal name. So what is your name on your birth certificate, not the name you go by. And unfortunately, sometimes people don't give me their legal name. They tell me like their nickname, and then I find out when I pull credit that that's really not their legal name. So your legal name, your birth date, your social security. If you're a doctor, junior, senior, we need to know that too. Then we're going to look at your address history for the last 2 years. So, if you're renting, we need to know how much your rent cost you per month. If you own a home currently, we need to know, okay, what is the total payment on that? And that includes your taxes, insurance, if you have an HOA, condo fee, any kind of fee that's associated with owning that property. So we're looking at those things. And then the next thing that we look at is your employment history for the last 2 years. So sometimes we'll have Danitza, especially after COVID. A lot of people were off during COVID and not working. So we're almost past that 2 year point, but if somebody didn't go back to work, let's just say they didn't go back until like October of 21, we may have to go a little further back than actual 2 years in history, but 2 years of work history. So sometimes we've got to go back to 19 because the people were off in 2020 and 2021. But we basically have to provide the underwriter with a 2 full years of work employment history. So that's super important that we know that. And if you've had multiple jobs, it's really important to know the dates that you were at those jobs, because depending on the type of loan that I'm doing, I may have to go back and get like written verifications from each employer. And whenever underwriters find out that we have the wrong dates for employment and stuff, it just makes it have to go back to underwriting yet again. So the more accurate the information is that you give me and that I give the underwriter, the less chance that the underwriters are going to make us do additional work. And so the key in mortgages and in real estate in general, buying a house, is the quicker you can get things done, the less risk there is for something going wrong. The longer it takes, the more opportunity that something's going to come up and cause a problem. So it's very important that when you do the application, that you give the most accurate information available. And then that way, when it gets submitted to underwriting, it's a nice, clean file. The underwriters are going to appreciate that, and they're going to make your life easier and my life easier, because they're not going to be questioning everything. So, so that's the one thing that we look at, the work history. We also look at, your earnings. So if your salary, it's pretty easy because salaried people, their income doesn't fluctuate at all. If you're hourly, we're going to be looking at if you're variable hours. So if you work 40 hours every week, not really a big deal. It's pretty much like the same as looking at somebody that's salaried. However, if you work like 32 hours one week and then maybe 37 another, when your hours are constantly changing, that does require extra documentation from like your employer. And so basically it's kind of important to know like if your hours have fluctuated. And then the other thing too is if somebody's like commissioned, or if they are getting tips and things of that nature, it requires more documentation. Very important to know that up front, because the paperwork that you're giving is going to be a lot different than the paperwork that we're going to be requesting on somebody that's salaried. So we definitely need to know that. So we look at that employment history, and then the next thing we look at, Danitza, is like we do the details of transaction, which is like, okay, how much money do you have available to work with? And then we figure out closing costs, everything like that. And then we come up with a plan like, do you need to have seller's assist to help you get to closing and have the amount of money that you need? So that's part of the application too, is looking at what assets you have available and what assets you want to use, because it isn't always necessarily the best thing to take all of your assets that you have and use them at one time.
Nope.
Because Danitza and I both will tell you, there's always unexpected things that come up when you own a home. And so if you take all of your money to get into the house and then something happens, you're going to be in a bind. And we don't want you to do that. So what I like to talk to people is like, hey, what do you feel comfortable spending of the money that you have available? And then we kind of come up with a game plan from there.
Yep. And I'm sure we can both tell you a ton of stories about people who've purchased homes and then, days, weeks, months within purchasing it, major disasters. My sister, first home, she's 22, 23 years old. The day so 1 month after she bought it, the day she's having her housewarming party, her toilet on the second floor overflowed and through the pipes in the bottom, and it collapsed into her first floor, like right outside her kitchen. So, yep, that was an unexpected expense for sure. So you always want to have that reserve fund of the rainy day, and hopefully it's just rain and not anything else.
Yes, yeah, that's unfortunate, but we do hear stories like that. I mean, houses are houses. It's like anything, like cars. Cars break down, houses break down too. And so hopefully you won't have it happen, but you need to be prepared in the event that it does happen. So,
Yep. So any other key points of the mortgage application that we want to talk about today?
yeah, the only other thing that we really look at, Danitza, is we look at the declarations. So the declarations are you legally able to purchase a house? Do you have a bankruptcy? Do you have a foreclosure? If you do, how long ago was it? The other question that they want to find out is, are you trying to buy a property from somebody that you know? Because that's important, and they look at that a little bit differently than if it's not a property that's somebody you know. So the declarations are asking, are you involved in a lawsuit? Did you have a bankruptcy? Did you have a foreclosure? Is this your primary residence? So it's about 12 different questions that they go through and ask you. But the real gist of it is, are you able to purchase property at this specific point in time? So that's pretty much the gist of the application. It normally takes anywhere from like 15 to like 25 minutes to do the actual application itself. It's pretty quick. It's just the consult, as I've kind of told you guys before, I don't feel comfortable not giving you a lot of information. That's why I like to talk to people on the phone and make sure that I educate them and let them know while we're doing the application. We talk about a lot of other things and get you prepared. So when the time comes, you're not just there going with the flow. And then afterwards, people ask you questions and you're like, oh, I have no idea. That's not how I operate. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people in this industry and that is how they operate, but it's not me. So if you want somebody that's going to educate you, and the same thing with Danitza, like we are going to tell you the good, bad, and the ugly. So.
Yep. And if you haven't figured out listening to all this, what Jess talked about on this formal, application, she's probably already asked you and talked to you about for your pre-approval. So it's just confirming and reiterating. And that's part of this process too. Everything is double and triple checked to make sure that, we're doing the best for you and that we're not going to get you to a position that is not advantageous in the long run. So any questions that you have about any of the information today, any of the information in general, real estate, hey, anything, we're here to talk. We like talking.
Yes, we do.
So please reach out. All of our contact information is down below. Please subscribe. Please follow us. Again, Jess Lyons from Lyonsgate Funding, and I am Danitza Nicklow with Berkshire Hathaway, the Preferred Realty. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great day.